Christian Dvorak, who happens to coincidentally be tied with Kirby Dach. Both of those guys have 11 points. Jake Evans has scored in 5 consecutive games. He scored in both games against Florida, coincidentally, again, both looking very much the same. Yoel Armia hoping for a pass, and Jake Evans goes a roof daddy. He's on 10 goals. His
Yeah.
shooting percentage is at like 27%. 13 goals is his career high. I want to talk about value as it relates to Armia, Dvorak, Evans, value to the market, value to the market as it relates to a rebuilding team. So let's start there. I mean, Jake Evans would be very tempting to a lot of teams today. The Canadiens are rebuilding. Is it Ken Hughes' job to trade Jake Evans to help rebuild his future and maximize that asset?
Oh man, I am on the anti-trade Jake Evans
Everybody
run.
loves him when he shoots at 27%.
Of course, but he's not always gonna. Like he could score. He could not score another goal, and I still know
Yeah,
who Jake Evans is and what he provides. Okay, like
agreed.
I'll be honest. If he goes and finishes the season with 10 goals and does not score another goal in the second half of the season, I will not change my tune about the Canadiens keeping Jake Evans. So on that front, the Canadiens need to keep Jake Evans for many, many reasons. The things he does besides having a stellar offensive year, because everybody's shocked at the numbers that he's putting up.
Yeah.
The penalty kill, the face-offs, the veteran presence on a very young team. You're like, yeah, but he's still young. No, he's 27. This guy was drafted in 2014 in the 7th round. Think how long it took for Jake Evans to develop into Jake Evans. And people are saying trade him. The guy in Laval is going to do his job next year. So you're going to take a guy that it took 10 years to develop to be who he is and give the job to someone who had 1 year of development? Makes zero sense to me whatsoever. And I understand the market and the price for Jake Evans is going to be very difficult to manage. But this is your job, Kent.
Mm-hmm.
This is your job. You know you're going to be probably walking away from Dvorak. And then if you lose Dvorak and you trade away Evans and Doc doesn't work out, who's your centers next year? Who's going to play center for you?
Well, so in
You're
my
going to
world,
acquire a Jake Evans type of player. Might as well keep Jake Evans. And you're going to go to the open market and overpay for someone because it's going to be July 1st. Why not overpay for Jake Evans?
it's hard to see a world in which next year Oliver Kapanen and Owen Beck fulfill the roles of Christian Dvorak and Jake Evans. I quite honestly, I think it's
Dreaming.
impossible that
You're
Martin St.
dreaming.
Louis. And look, I mean, Owen Beck is having a year, right? He's on what I think he's the second leading scorer on the Laval Rocket. I mean, very much looking like someone that eventually can round out the depth chart. But there's room for Jake Evans, right? Because in my head, and let's talk about Yoel Armia. Like Yoel Armia at this time next year on December 29, 2025, Yoel Armia is not a Montreal Canadian. Christian Dvorak is not a Montreal Canadian, correct?
I'll give you 99% on Dvorak, and I'll give you 60% on Armia.
So if Dvorak isn't here, the money freed up by Dvorak, the position freed up by Dvorak opens the door wide open for Jake Evans. Logically, right? I mean, that makes the
Mhm.
most sense, doesn't it?
Yeah,
So
I have
Jake
no.
Evans keeps his role. So he's 28 years old. He makes $1.7 million this year. It looks like he's going to have a career year. He's on pace for over 50
Mhm.
points. As we mentioned before, Evans's career high in goals is 13. He's on 10 right now. So, yeah, let's say he goes the whole way. He drops a 55-point campaign. He's 28 years old. We know this is probably going to be his one and only shot at maximizing value as an unrestricted free agent. Are the Canadiens going to pay Jake Evans $3.5 to $4 million over a 4 or 5 year deal? Is that because I have a Evans is not going to sign for? I'm guessing he's not going to sign for 3. So let's think out loud that it's going to be 5 years. I'm going to easily double what he's making now. So that takes me to 3.5. So I'll round up for tax sake and give him 4.
Okay.
So 20 million, we're good.
So you're going 20 million, 4 or 5. Like, yeah, you could probably a little steep on my end but I know you have to pay him and this is his opportunity. And if you want to
This is
keep
it.
him, you're going to have to over. That's fine.
Yes.
So
Yes.
whatever math you want to do, that's fine. Let's do that. Let's work off of that math. When you're building a team, I'm telling you, when the Canadians are trying to put something together and they can't do something economically, they're not going to be looking at a $4 million contract. They're
Mhm.
going to be looking at the guy that's getting paid $6.5 million. They're going to be looking at the guy that gets paid $5.5 million that are contributing not offensively but other ways to the team. The when you can't make a move because you're economically crunched, it's not because of the $4 million player. So even if you're maybe overpaying a little bit, you know, think about the situation. Canadians didn't want to overpay Philip Deneau. Seems like a pretty good price for Philip Deneau nowadays. In retrospect,
Yeah, Jake Evans not Phil Deneau though. Like
no, but you're not
Phil
going to
Deneau's
pay him
worth
$5.5 million.
no, no.
So this is, and I think you're stretching it when you're getting to 4, but I don't know what it's going to be like at the end of the season.
Well, I'm
And
just
other
thinking,
teams,
figure he's 1.7 now. What he's doing
yes,
this year, he's gonna double what I'm gonna think he's gonna get close to double
yeah,
what his
that's
cap
fine.
hit
And
is
we
now.
were rounding up for like I don't think you're
Yeah,
far off.
right.
Like I said, 4 might be a little steep for me, but if you're in the 3.5 range, I really have no problem with that with Jake Evans.
And watching him, I mean, everything that you say. I mean, I watch him every time, and it's undeniable. I mean, the work ethic, the leadership, the
Mhm.
skill. Obviously, the season, the guy's on a heater. He's got to be laughing every time. He's going roof daddy. I mean, he looks like a sniper. And
Mhm.
he's having a season, and I hope he can squeeze every bit of offensive productivity so he can make as much bank as I mean, I love the story.
Yeah,
He was a Notre Dame Fighting Irish guy. You talk about where he was drafted, and I love seeing hard work getting paid off, and that's what Jake Evans brings to the table, man. He brings a lot of hard work. So, like you and I both understand the value of veterans to a team, to young players, to a team that wants to learn how to win. And the Canadians are, in the mix of a wild card, and the Jake Evans line has been the one of the most consistent lines, and Yoel Armia has been a huge factor to that. And it seems here we go once again. Like Finland came calling for Armia for the upcoming Four Nations. You and I have both seen this guy play pretty good hockey when the time calls for good hockey to be played.
yep.
Um, there's another player that, again, Ken Hughes, in my opinion, has to look at as he wants to rebuild his team. Like Yoel Armia is a great stock price. Pump and dump time, baby. It's time to maybe maximize. And unfortunately, Shaun, losing a valuable veteran at a time when the team is in the mix.
Yeah, it depends on what happens at where they are at the trade deadline because he's going to be a player that they're going to lean on in that situation. He had that year and change where he was just so inconsistent and it was just really rough and it was tough to see. I thought at
Yeah.
the end of last year he was consistent enough that I felt that he was a non-issue. This year, I feel he's a non-issue for the Canadians. I feel that Armia is paid 3 and change and he's worth 3 and change. That for what he brings to the table at his
Yeah.
age. Maybe he's a little bit overpaid. So he's at the stage where he's a little bit older. I don't know how much he can make when it comes to free agency. It might just be easier to, Ken Hughes and Armia just look at each other to say, hey, you want to just double up for another couple of years, 2 years, 7 mil, let's go. Stay around here. If it doesn't work out, I'll trade you somewhere you like. But you want to do that. I could see that happen. I don't see Armia making 5 million, and I don't see him making 2 million. So, if you want to keep that Armia, Heineman, Evans, chemistry, and make that fourth line turn into a third line, I'd have no
Mhm.
problem with that. I'd have no problem with that moving forward with the Canadians.